I'm used to dealing with children who fight. I'm used to dealing with folks who don't want to be together and yet they're forced to.
Fighting for universal school choice in West Virginia, with the usual suspects and with your friends, all for the kids. An immigrant homeschooler turned legislator is Governing's choice for a public official of the year.
TFIC takes you deeper into the stories that are shaping the future of state and local government.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
You're not Buzz Lightyear.
I'm Siri.
And I'm Google.
And I am Alexa.
Alexa seems so smart. I think we'd have a lot to talk about.
Pew, pew.
From governing and government technology, this is The Future in Context. With Paul Taylor, I'm Ashley Silver. On this episode, we wrap up our deep dives on Governing's Class of 2024 Public Officials of the Year. In view this time out is the woman who helped kick off a school choice revolution in West Virginia. The state didn't have any private school choice options at all before Patricia Rucker made vouchers universal. Nearly a dozen states have followed suit. Former governing writer Zina Hutton returns to the podcast to talk with Paul about Rucker's life and work.
Governing writers Zina Hutton, welcome back to the big show.
Thanks for having me.
So this is Governing's favorite time of the year, neither Thanksgiving or Christmas, but public officials of the year. Who was yours? And tell us about her and what makes her stand out.
My public official of the year was West Virginia State Senator Patricia Rucker. She is a force. She is one of the driving kind of architects of school choice in West Virginia, one of the few legislators to push a universal or near universal school choice bill that covers students at all income rates and at all school districts. Like, nobody gets left behind here. She is covering them all.
Education is going to be continuing to innovate and flourish and grow. And West Virginia is now a place where people can come and try new things when it comes to education and entrepreneuring. There's a new word, edupreneurship, education entrepreneurship, which I love that. Sometimes it's a teacher who says, I'm not being given the freedom that I want, and I have a passion for how I'm doing things, and I want to try to offer it directly to students without the bureaucracy. Well, Micro School is a very open, very innovative school that's given a lot of freedom to innovate. And a teacher can just have 5 students, 10 students in that micro school and can do what he is passionate about doing. And the parents, they have complete and total control over, yes, that will work for my child. I want my child to go there. Or no, my child stayed in the public school local. But those micro schools are giving us a lot of innovative options for a very reasonable cost for those families. And they're popping up all over West Virginia.
Interesting. We'll talk school choice in just a little bit. But I wanted to get your sense in this season when origin stories seem to matter a lot or get a lot of attention. She's got an interesting one, both in terms of an immigrant journey and herself being able to take advantage of education as a way to propel her forward.
Patricia came from Venezuela when she was 6 years old. She was pretty much a refugee dealing with really heightened political tensions, and her family moved to the United States. They were immigrants, and she started out kind of on the odds, like everything was geared against her. She didn't speak English. She didn't really understand the US education system, but she literally turned it around. She made it work for her. And, as we were talking, by the time she was like about to exit elementary school here in the US, she was on top of everything. Like, I'm talking actively engaging with student programs. She became kind of like a living success story, a kind of American dream in action. So she was able to essentially take, the hand that fate dealt her and just zoom forward. And when it comes to education, that's been something that really influenced her, like her experience in the public school system, then kind of going on to become a teacher briefly, and then having to homeschool her kids. Like she wanted to be a direct part of her kids' education and helping them learn and grow. You know, it wasn't out of a distrust, it was out of a knowledge of how the system works and how her experiences can better inform her kids. You know, that's the sense that I got while we were talking, that it was about love of teaching, love of being a part of that path. And for her, it was kind of like a logical leap from a homeschooling mother to getting into politics, because what she was seeing wasn't what West Virginians needed. You know, and that's why I think her first year she was on the education committee in the state senate as the top dog there. Like she came in knowing, I need to change this. I want to change this. I want West Virginians across the board to have what I have. You know, and she took that and she ran with it all the way to her second term, where she then got that bill pushed through.
Obviously, I'm living the American dream. I'm very grateful I came here and I have been successful here. And I have beautiful family, a home. It really, really is hard for me when there are folks who do not have that, who do not have that experience. When you hear about children who do not have homes, who are being shuffled from one place to the other, who were abused, who were hurt, adults who are without family and don't are not getting help from you know anyone. And I will tell you, as a Republican, I feel there's a role for government, and then there's a role that's not for government. There should be community involvement, churches, individuals helping. We have personal responsibility. I don't just automatically say, oh, the government has to fix it. But the role that government does have, I feel we could do a lot better on. And I'm trying to be politically correct here because honestly, my opinions are that we are failing. We are failing in the things that we are supposed to be doing as government. We are not doing well. And then instead, government is involved in a whole bunch of things that we are not supposed to be in. And that is distracting us from those core issues of taking care of people, which I think if there's going to be government, we should ensure people are not abused or hurt. Basic, basic to me, bare minimum.
Off the top, you mentioned that she is an advocate of school choice. Sometimes school choice is very narrow, a voucher for you and a voucher for you. Her approach seems much
Sure.
wider and deeper than that. Unpack that for us.
Instead of kind of this like Oprah-esque, like, you get this voucher, you get this voucher thing, her approach to school choice, because one of the things with school choice is that a lot of people see it as limiting options. Weirdly enough, it's like, oh, well, you're getting rid of the public schools, you are possibly harming rural families. And she was like, this opens up options for parents who can't do or don't like certain things with schools, especially after COVID, where a lot of families kind of went, no, we're okay, we don't like what we're seeing, how can we do better? And so she was listening to parents. It wasn't just her experiences as a parent or her interactions with school choice advocates. What developed her kind of perspective on school choice was what her constituents were saying. They were unhappy with the quality of their access. School choice legislation starts small. It gives you, like, if you're in an underdeveloped school district, it gives you options to bus, or gives you some kind of stipend or something, or the vouchers. And she was like, no, no, no. Everybody needs this, because everybody needs to be able to say, this is what my kid needs, whether that is your kid going to a private school, or a kid being bused to another school district, or even micro schools, something that is increasingly popular in the school choice set. Micro schools with like 5 to 10 students learning together. And it's innovative in and of itself. You know, it's like kind of like elevated homeschool. And I thought that was very fascinating, that she's just making room for all of these potential options for students. and for educators. So you can have educators who maybe want to teach smaller classes, getting into the microschooling game and being able to direct learning more effectively. That's the sense I got, that it's all about making sure essentially that everybody can do what they want or what they need when it comes to education.
I was surprised that I had to let my constituent teachers know. So when I became education chair and I had the opportunity to push for much faster reform, I will tell you that I did try to do a basic school choice bill that included the local control, but also open enrollment, the availability to do charter schools, and not just outside, coming here to do charter schools, but public schools being able to do charters and magnets. Just let's innovate. Let's try to do whatever we can to keep those kids.
Parents clearly seem to be on board with her. Where and how much pushback did she get?
So, some of the kind of unexpected pushback, like when she told me, I was like, oh, we're within her own party. Like people in her own party were like, oh, well, I don't see the point of this. I don't get it. And some of them didn't like it. So in the first round of trying to get this bill passed, she wasn't able to. She came back around. She was like, no, no, no. Let me sit with you guys before the session starts. Let's work through this fairly early on so that by the time the bill comes back around to be voted on, they're like, oh, we sat with Patricia. We kind of get what she's doing here. This isn't what we thought. So that was kind of the unexpected pushback. The big expected pushback, of course, came from public schools. It came from teachers, came from admin, essentially going, no, you're trying to take our jobs, you're trying to lower our paychecks, you're trying to lower our values, you're trying to disrupt our unions. And obviously, West Virginia has historically been a very union heavy state. Like, this is kind of one of the big things West Virginia is known for: the strength, the power, the dedication of its unions. And the teachers' union is no different. But in going up against Patricia Rucker, I think the unions hit a wall because she was very much like not going to back down. And ultimately, the pushback, which kind of oriented itself around the end of her first term and the start of her second term, really kind of reaffirmed her position. Like, she was like, I'm not giving up. This is what we need. But it also seemingly destabilized the school board. Like, from the people I talked to in collecting information about Patricia and her role, it was very much like they lost to her, and it was a very public loss that kind of helped kind of show people in other states like Arizona, like, oh, well, we don't need to do things the way we have been. Let's try something new. So it's, I guess, destabilizing almost for public schools.
It was a disaster. So I had to run again and essentially face down very strong opposition by the teachers unions who absolutely decided to target me, and win that in order to be able to really do school choice. And when I won that election, in which they spent a lot of money on me, it was what I needed for my fellow legislators to see that, okay, they weren't able to defeat her, even though they target her. And maybe we don't need to be as worried or scared of them as we think. And let's see what we can do to actually give our families what they need. And it did also happen to coincide, that 2020 election, with something called COVID. And as you may remember, schools were shut down. Teachers did not want to return to the classroom, and we actually had to force them. We even had teachers that sued us because we wanted them to actually return to the classroom. It was kind of a crazy world, but there was never a better time for us to basically say, okay, listen, the funding that we fund education is to fund the student. We don't care where. If that student can get it at their public school, great. If they can get it at a different public school, great. If they can get it at a private school, or if they must choose homeschooling, which I think most people who choose homeschooling, God bless them, like I did, you are taking the entire responsibility onto your shoulders. But if you choose that, we'll make certain your funds follow your child to ensure you get the best possible outcome, whatever choice you make. So we did the first universal education savings account. We call it the Hope Scholarship. And it was not limited by geographic barriers, by special needs, by the income of the parents. And, I faced all of those same questions. The legislators came, said, well, why aren't we just doing it for low income? And my response to them was, well, there might be a student whose parent makes $1 above whatever threshold we decide to give. We're saying that child doesn't deserve a good education? Of course they do.
One of the things I found interesting in your interview with her, unlike some approaches to school reform, she keys on vulnerable populations. Tell me more about that.
So, one of the things that I really loved when talking to Patricia was just her passion for the vulnerable people in her constituency. Like, across our conversation, I got the sense that she's doing everything that she does for the people that kept getting left behind by policy, whether that was education policy or foster care or, post jail. I'm not entirely sure what the term would be for that, but keeping an eye out for the people who often get left behind. That's usually the rural communities in school choice. They're usually not the focus for legislation. It's only relatively recently we're seeing more focus there. But it's also that she's prioritizing didn't feel represented, didn't feel recognized. And so at every aspect of her career, at every aspect of her policymaking, she's thinking, how can I help the people that need help? And I know a lot of politicians are also doing that, but the passion that she delivered, her convictions with was just incredible.
We were one of only 3 states in the United States with zero school choice of any kind. And when it comes to school choice, for those who don't know, school choice is just the option that parents may have to select something other than their district school. That's what school choice essentially is. So when I first got elected, I was, thank goodness, from the beginning in the education committee, and we worked to decentralize education decisions, give the local school boards a little bit more choices instead of the capital city deciding everything. And we were trying to help public education. And what I found was a lot of resistance, refusal to change, and I think some of it came from just this perception that you are legislators, you can't tell us what to do. We educators know what's best. And I'm actually an educator, and also I know that although yes, the educators do know what's best, they don't necessarily understand. They need to not just do what they want in their little classroom, but we have a responsibility to all students, and what you may be doing may work for one student, not necessarily for every student. So our responsibility as legislators is to represent all of our constituents. That was one of the biggest things.
The passion that she brings to the table is also interesting, and perhaps it's not surprising, but I think it's noteworthy that she has a lot of optimism about her state, both socially and economically, and the role that education can play in all of that.
Oh, I loved that. I loved that she was like, what we're doing with education is going to change West Virginia. Already, she says that there are a lot more, not just educators coming to the state, different charter schools, different education, material developers, those sorts of people, but that entrepreneurs, period, are coming to West Virginia and they're recognizing that this can be a state where, 5, 10, 15 years from now, it becomes a power. becomes a place that people want to live in, want to grow in, want to learn in, want to raise their families in. And I think that's important to keeping the trajectory of the state going. If people want to come to West Virginia because they're hearing all of these good things about what the schools are doing, what the educators are doing, their ability to help their children learn the way they want them to be taught, they're going to stay in West Virginia, and they're going to make West Virginia even better than Senator Rucker thinks it already is.
I see West Virginia honestly just shooting off like a rocket. We have spent the Republicans gained control of the Western legislature 10 years ago. We've spent the last 8 years that I've been there just trying to see the landscape, see what's going on. And there's been a lot of fires that we had to put down. We're now at a point in which we're comfortable in our role and our positions. And we have folks in place who are extremely talented and extremely good at what they do. And I just see us just taking off. Education is going to be continuing to innovate and flourish and grow. And West Virginia is now a place where people can come and try new things when it comes to education and entrepreneuring. There's a new word, edupreneurship, education entrepreneurship, which I love that. I love that West Virginia is becoming that because of us passing that universal school choice. And that's going to bring in individuals who want to get the very best education. And then when you have good education, you're going to have good business, because it just goes hand in hand. And I didn't even mention the fact that we had just been bringing down barriers to business, basically right-sizing regulations. A proper amount of regulation, but not an excessive amount of regulation is what we're hoping for. So that, again, we want businesses to flourish. Most of the businesses in West Virginia are small businesses, mom and pops, shops, and it's just beautiful to see. And we also have incredible beauty. So that brings folks in. And so I really, really am excited that West Virginia is just opening up that book of possibilities.
And she loves her state. I think that's amazing. I'm in Florida and I go through a lot, but hearing someone be so passionate about their state and where they think it's going to go makes me want to be a little more positive about Florida, actually.
That's great. What surprised you the most about her? Or
I think I'll
why
do
does she matter?
both. So when because I got to talk to a lot of my sources before I got to talk to her. So they had built this kind of lionized figure, this huge, larger than life force. And I was like, oh, I'm a little scared. Talking to her was like talking to a teacher. Talking to a teacher, not just as a student, but talking to a teacher when I used to teach, talking to a fellow teacher, to somebody who gets it, who wants to get it. And it was just such a very warm conversation. I was just so excited, and she was just so friendly and positive, and the energy, how they say that people can light up a room. Her personality, flashlight in the pitch dark, truly. And when it comes to why she matters, I think we lightly touched on it during our call, but she is often the only woman in the room in West Virginia politics. She's often the only woman, and being an immigrant, she's probably also the only Latina in the room. She matters because her lived experiences have shaped her. They've shaped her politics, they've shaped her personality, they shape her determination. And far too often, we see very, very limited diversity in politics. What she brings to the table and how she understands the world because of her past experiences, because of what she went through as a child in Venezuela, as a child in the United States, as a mother, those things really help inform who she is, how she does politics, and how she negotiates with a world that is kind of geared to underestimate her and get in her way. And the way she does that is obviously by pushing forward. right? Like, she's not going to let anybody get in her way. And it's just incredibly amazing. She's just such an admirable human being.
Zina Hutton, thank you for your reporting on this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our former colleague Zina Hutton on her profile of POI Patricia Rucker. The two-term West Virginia senator is seeking her third. She's on the ballot November 5th.
Our editorial team includes Theo Douglas, Zoe Manzanetti, and Kaylee Tedrow. Paul produces the show. Our executive editor is Noelle Nell.
Next time out, we'll meet the president of U.S. programs for the Gates Foundation and explore its work in making communities better places to live for the people who live in them. And that will do it for us this time out. For Ashley Silver, I'm Paul Taylor. Thanks for listening. Always forward.